walk we will take today through Father Claret's Madrid will take us to the places most frequented by Father Claret in the last 9 years of his life at the royal court. Unfortunately, many of them have disappeared, but we can still unearth enough traces to imagine his prodigious and exemplary life in the royal court, where he certainly never felt at ease. The third walk itinerary from Puerta del Sol to Atocha. We start at Puerta del Sol. From there we go to the streets where the bookstores were. Then we go up to the former church of Santo Tomas. Walking down Calle Atocha, we find the church of San Sebastian. From that place, we go to the former church of the Montserrat Hospital. Just opposite, we go to the extinct hospital of St. John of God. We walk through Atocha towards the convent of the Trinitarian Sisters. Returning to Calle Atocha, the former religious house Beaterio of St. Joseph appears before us. Just a little farther down, the former convent of Las Desamparadas. We walk to the convent of Santa Isabel. Then we descend to the General Hospital, and a long path takes us to the Sanctuary of Our Lady of Atocha, where the walk concludes. Let us begin with the Puerta del Sol, Spain's kilometer zero, and arterial center of the city's life. There, Father Claret dreamt of locating the Cathedral of Madrid long before the town became a diocese, and the construction of the current Almudena Cathedral began. He wanted it opposite the current seat of the autonomous government, where the famous clock stands. Now we enter the Calle del Correo.
In the Plaza de Pontejos and nearby Calle de la Paz were the Aguado and Olamendi bookshops, which, together with the Benito Perdiguero bookshop in Calle Concepcion Jeronima, were the bookshops where Father Claret made his purchases and sales during his stay in Madrid.
From there, along Calle de la Bolsa, we reach the Plaza de Santa Cruz, famous for the Santa Cruz Palace, formerly the Royal Court Prison and now the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is where the Calle Atocha begins. We take the street to the left as when Father Claret was returning from confession from the palace, and immediately we find on the right the Church of Santa Cruz. The approximate place where the Church of Santo Tomas stood in Father Claret's time, of which the remains are still preserved in the street of Santo Tomas.
This was the church of the former Dominican convent of Santo Tomas, one of the largest in Madrid in the 19th century. The Churrigueras, Herrera el Mozo, Lucas Jordan, and other notables worked there. In 1872, it suffered damage from a fire and was subsequently demolished. It was in this church where Archbishop Claret surprised and amazed the people of Madrid with his preaching. The newspaper, La Regeneración, wrote the following.
Every evening we attend the exercises that the apostolic man, the most respectable Father Claret, is given in Madrid in the spacious church of St. Thomas of this royal court. How much consolation does our soul receive when considering what is happening there. What recollection, unction, and exquisite attention to the Holy Word inspired by God to the Archbishop of Cuba. The spacious aisles of the church are full of people. Crowded together, they listen to the venerable priest. Claret has a pious audience hanging on to his every word for 2.5 hours in the afternoon and the same number of hours in the morning.
On many other occasions, Claret held functions in this church.
Continuing along Calle Atocha and crossing the Plaza Jacinto Benavente, we come to the Church of San Sebastian. This parish was created in 1550, probably taking the name of San Sebastian from a hermitage in Anton Martin Plaza. It was destroyed in 1936 and rebuilt in 1950.
It has a set of chapels, among which the Chapel of Belén, on the right, stands out because of a reconstructed masterpiece begun by Ventura Rodriguez and finished by Manuel Blas Rodriguez. Lope de Vega is buried in the cemetery of this church, which has been converted into a flower shop. The death registers of this parish are by far the most important in Spain with regard to literary history. Burial certificates include those of Cervantes, Lope de Vega, Vélez de Guevara, and Espronceda, as well as the baptisms of de Ramón de la Cruz, Leandro F. Moratín, and Barbieri, the marriages of Lara, Madrazo, Breton de los Herreros, Zorrilla, Alonso Martinez, Becker, Fortuny, Canalejas, Alberto Aguilera, Menendez Pidal, Serrano, Valle Inclán, Güero Vallejo, and more were also celebrated here. Ventura Rodriguez is buried here. Here, on April 5, 1861, Father Claret celebrated the marriage of the Count of Torrejon and the second daughter of the Marquis of Havana, the daughter of his friend from Cuba, José Gutiérrez de la Concha. The godparents were their majesties, the king and queen, as well as the Marquis of Duero and his wife. The event is recorded in the archives with the Archbishop's signature.
Finally, continuing along Calle Atocha, we arrive at the Plaza de Anton Martin. If we have to highlight a privileged place above all others, as far as Claretian memories in Madrid are concerned, it would be this one. In this square, right in the place now occupied by the Teatro Monumental, was the Hospital of Montserrat, where Claret lived the last 9 years of his stay in Madrid. This hospital was founded in 1616 at the request of Gabriel de Pons for the people of the Kingdom of Aragon in Calle Mesón de Paredes. It was moved in 1668 to the Plazuela de Anton Martin.
Claret was appointed protector of the hospital and church on March 28, 1859. With his efforts and apostolic zeal, he made the church one of the best attended centers of worship and made the hospital a model establishment. In 1866, he brought the Carmelite Sisters of Charity to care for the sick. Claret lived there himself at number 87 on the right-hand side. There are many stories of conversion that have taken place in this church of Montserrat. Claret's fame spread throughout Madrid, and with it came persecution and hatred. While living in Montserrat, Father Claret suffered all kinds of attacks in newspapers, books, and other publications. All those who visited him were very impressed by the poverty of the Archbishop. This house was the house of the poor. There was seldom a time when there was not someone there in need of help. It is worth remembering that it was in this house that he wrote his autobiography at the end of 1861 and into the beginning of 1862. It was also here that he compiled the constitutions of the Congregation of Missionaries and, above all, received special graces, which he humbly comments on in his autobiographical writings. He also experienced some dramatic moments here, such as the famous St. Giles Uprising. This is what he wrote to Mother Paris.
You know what a great ordeal we went through on the 22nd. You do not know how this royal court was and how I found myself. This house and the church have a small square with 5 streets. On that day, 5 barricades were formed from the stones that were pulled up from there. And in this small square, the revolutionaries made forts in which they were wounded and dead. I will not tell you about the rest of the townspeople because I did not see them, but I did hear them that it looked like an enormous battlefield. We heard rifle and cannon fire between the loyal troops, the rebel troops, and unruly peasants. I withdrew to the chapel of the Virgin of the main altar, and there I prayed until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when everything calmed down. There were many dead, wounded, and prisoners.
Until their disappearance in 1903, the Claretian missionaries heard confessions in this church hospital daily at the initiative of Fathers Isaac Burgos and Domingo Solá.
Let us now continue with the places Claret most frequented. Almost opposite this place, we can see a church, that of San Salvador and San Nicolas, which occupies the exact spot where in Father Claret's time, the hospital of San Juan de Dios was located. This hospital, founded in 1552 by the Venerable Anton Martin, the Juan de Dios of Madrid, was for the impoverished people. When the friars were expelled in 1836, it was considered part of the General Hospital of Madrid and under the auspices of the province. The order was restored in 1885, and the hospital was demolished in 1899.
The present church, the parish of San Salvador and San Nicolas, so named by Anton Martin, was built on the ruins of the Hospital de San Juan de Dios. The former church was burnt down in 1936, and the remains of the Venerable Anton Martin are kept in the chapel of the new San Rafael Children's Hospital. There are many reports about the activities of Father Claret in this hospital. These reports come from the religious sisters of the Siervas de Maria order, who looked after him. Sometimes he gave talks to the nuns, but his main work here was directed towards the sick, who at this time were wayward women.
We cross Calle Atocha again and enter Calle de Leon towards the literary center of Madrid. There we pass by the house where Jacinto Benavente was born and where Menendez Pelayo lived, now the Royal Academy of History. We turn into Calle Cervantes, where Cervantes and Lope de Vega then lived. We see the landmark in Calle Quevedo that reminds us of where Francisco de Quevedo lived, and we finally arrive at the convent of the Discalced Trinitarian Sisters. On November 20, 1612, the first community of contemplative nuns was established here under the guidance of the reformer San Juan Bautista de la Concepcion. In 1668, Marcos Lopez began construction of a new and definitive temple and monastery, which is the current one. Cervantes is buried here.
The facade is in a similar style as that of the Convent of the Incarnation. The Baroque-style interior showcases paintings, sculptures, and altarpieces from Madrid. The church has been saved from the various fires and lootings that other religious sites in the area have suffered over the years.
In an old archive booklet of this convent, you can find the talks given here during Lent by His Excellency and most illustrious Archbishop Antonio Claret. The year of this Lent is not indicated, but the summaries of the appeals made by Claret and exercises that he also gave to the community are preserved with the date of 1859. He also gave a talk on July 5th on the love of God in the sacrament of the Eucharist. It is interesting to remember that it was in a silversmith shop in this street of Lope de Vega, that of Victor Perez, that Father Claret pawned his pectoral cross to help a poor person. Later, the Bishop of Segorbe visited the silversmith shop to buy it and found this note.
On July 5th, 1866, an archiepiscopal cross from His Excellency and most illustrious Father Claret, 1,314 reales and 29 maravedíes, the money of the time, to pay the cost of a poor man's journey.
Going down Calle Lope de Vega a little farther, we turn right again towards Calle Atocha, where, going up a little to the right and past the house where Don Quixote was first printed, we find the place where the religious house Beaterio de San Jose was located in the time of Father Claret. This house of Blessed Women of the Third Order of St. Francis was founded in 1638 in Calle de Mesón de Paredes and later moved to Calle Atocha, 115. The church was rebuilt in 1768. In 1878, these Blessed Women became Franciscan Sisters of the Immaculate Conception. Father Claret came very often to this convent near his residence in Montserrat.
Sometimes he would arrive at the convent and gently knock with his fingers on the door. He would say to the Blessed Sister, "Do you want to talk a little?" The Blessed Sisters, grateful for the invitation, would enthusiastically accept it. Someone heard him say, "The special church of St. Joseph is the reliquary of the religious sisters of Madrid."
A little farther down and on the opposite pavement, between the streets of San Eugenio and Marqués de Toca, was one of Father Claret's favorite places, the Colegio de Desamparadas. This is the former convalescent hospital de Unciones for the sick of San Juan de Dios, which has now disappeared. It was founded by the Venerable Bernardino de Obregon. He was moved by the weakness and extreme exhaustion of syphilis patients who were left in that state due to the brutal treatment of mercurial functions. In 1655, he obtained this asylum from the wealthy Don Pedro de Marmol.
The Viscountess of Horbalan, St. Michaela, managed to take over the hospital in 1850, converting it into the School of the Helpless. She resided there with the other members of the Sisters Adorers, an order which she founded.
As superior of this house, Father Claret does not consent to the admission of those who leave, any who does not believe it is detrimental to the house to disregard the Constitution.
Claret used to preach very frequently at this school. On the 25th of each month, he preached at the community's retreat. Once, when leaving the school, Don Carmelo Sala, his chaplain, observed something extraordinary in Archbishop Claret, although he did not know what it was. Sala made a sign of surprise or admiration, and Father Claret, as his confessor, said to him in confidence,
"Tonight, the Blessed Virgin placed the child Jesus in my arms. How beautiful he was."
The canon himself stated this fact in the informative process. And now we deviate again from the Atocha Street by the one of Marquis de Toca to the right, to reach the one of Santa Isabel, to be in front of the Colegio de Santa Isabel that Father Claret called Escolapias. Número 53. It was the first convent of the Augustinian sisters before that of the Encarnacion. In 1610, Doña Margarita and Felipe III installed them definitively after having been in Calle del Príncipe. The place chosen was Calle Santa Isabel, in the magnificent palace or country house of Antonio Perez, minister of Philip II. The girls' school was founded at the same time. The church was designed by Juan Gomez de Mora and built by Jeronimo and Pedro Lazaro Guiti in 1640.
This school was handed over to the Piarist sisters on May 9, 1863. It is currently occupied by the Augustinian Recollect sisters. When the Church of Montserrat was demolished in 1903, all the altarpieces and images were transferred to this convent, except for 4 Solomonic columns, which are now in the new gallery of the Royal Collections in Madrid. These altarpieces were lost in the fire of 1936, but the images were preserved. This church also housed Salvador Paramo's masterpiece, an image of the crucifix, which was commissioned by Father Claret for the Church Hospital of Montserrat. According to a chronicle of the events of this school, Father Claret frequently visited and worked here. Every year, he gave them spiritual exercises. As one person who was there during Father Claret's visits wrote,
"Every day His Excellency deigned to address the divine word to us with all the unction and enthusiasm with which he is so known. Still, the farewell sermon was incredibly moving, urging us to practice holy prayer, the cultivation of our hearts, and that of the girls, and the fraternal union among us. He ended with the papal blessing and gave each of us a copy of the Catechism and a prayer card. In return for so much good, he neither asked for nor admitted more than the help of our prayers, promising us, for his part, the favor of his prayers while he lives and after his death, when he is in glory."
Leaving the convent of Santa Isabel, we go down towards Atocha. Shortly before arriving, we come across the Reina Sofia Art Center, also a palace of Claretian memories, since at that time it served as the general hospital. King Philip II, wishing to remedy the ills caused by the multitude of hospitals that existed in Madrid, conceived the idea in 1566 of bringing them all together into one. First, locating it in the Plaza de las Cortes and putting Bernardino de Obregon in charge of it. A few years later, it was moved to the end of Calle Atocha, to an old poor house founded by Cristobal Perez de Huera in 1596.
The building had to be demolished in the mid-18th century, and the new building, that is the present Reina Sofia Center, was constructed. José de Hermosilla directed the works and was succeeded by Sabatini. On his way to the Canary Islands in February 1848, Claret visited this hospital. He writes in his autobiography,
"All the days I remained in the royal court, I occupied myself in preaching and hearing the confessions of the poor, sick of the general hospital."
Crossing now the Plaza del Emperador Carlos V, commonly called the Glorieta de Atocha, and leaving the train station on the right and the impressive building of the Minister of Agriculture on the left, we walk along the Avenida de la Ciudad de Barcelona to the Basilica of Nuestra Señora de Atocha. A convent of preachers was erected on the site of the ancient sanctuary of Our Lady of Atocha in 1523. Construction lasted until the 17th century. The most notable feature of this building was the chapel of Our Lady of Atocha.
After the exclaustration, the convent was converted into a residence for invalids. The remains of Palafox, Castaños, Rios Rosas, Prim, and Concha were buried in the church. Because of the threat of ruin, it was agreed in 1901 that the old basilica be demolished and a new one be built, according to Fernando Arbos's plans. The national pantheon of illustrious men was built behind the basilica. Burnt down and destroyed during the Civil War, the church was rebuilt in 1951. It is recorded that Father Claret officiated in this church on the christening of the Infanta Concepcion. After the christenings of her children, the Queen was accustomed to go to Our Lady of Atocha, where she attended the singing of the Te Deum, the Laurentian Litany, and the Salve, renewing afterward, in the presence of ministers, the diplomatic corps, and the grandees of Spain, the offering of the infants. Claret always accompanied her, as he also used to accompany her to the same place on her return from her travels.
Here we conclude today's walk. We hope that one day you will have the opportunity and good fortune to visit the places that Claret visited in this modern city, which has not eliminated them.